From the early days of the occupation in 2003, Iraq was awash with dollars and with promises of a new tomorrow.
$18.4 billion to the people of Iraq to rebuild the country.
Putting money into essential services like health care.
The budget for 2003 will be somewhere between $600 million and $800 million.
Money is flowing back into the healthcare system.
So what happened to all those promises? Dr. Ali Fadil is in a pediatric and maternity hospital in Diwaniyah trying to find out. So how come after 3 years of occupation and billions of dollars of spending, hospitals are still short of basic supplies? The money that should have helped those people was entrusted to the coalition by the United Nations. But official auditors have not been able to discover where it all went. Now, investigations by the Special Inspector General for Iraqi Reconstruction are leading to arrests. But the inspectors have struggled to get at the truth about the Coalition Provisional Authority and the Development Fund for Iraq.
There were less than adequate internal controls in many cases. Very often we found that contracts were missing, that the individuals who were responsible for them had short terms and they had left and turned it over to someone else. And so we had a very difficult time actually trying to make sure that all the money was accounted for.
It was a climate which practically invited exploitation. The largest single recipient of Iraq's money was American energy company Halliburton, formerly led by US Vice President Dick Cheney. They received $1.6 billion of Iraqi money to help reinstate the country's oil supply. Auditors said $177 million were overcharged. Although Halliburton continues to deny this, it recently reached a settlement with the US government to repay $9 million. But while some companies may have overcharged, others went far further. Scott Custer and former Republican candidate Mike Battles were about to fleece Iraqi funds of millions of dollars. One man who worked with them until he realized what they were up to was Bob Isaacson.
Their background was impeccable. They were military officers, CIA. One of them had run for the United States Congress. They were recommended by very high-level U.S. government officials as being honest individuals.
Today, lawyer Alan Grayson is working with Bob Isaacson to recover money from Custer Battles, using a U.S. law which allows Isaacson to share some of it.
These were people who went over to Iraq without any presence there, without any employees there, without equipment, without facilities, without any tangible qualifications, and without any money.
Almost immediately, Custer Battles landed a $15 million contract to provide security for civilian flights at Baghdad Airport. But the flights never happened, so Custer Battles carried out other security duties.
$2 million was due on the 1st of August. We went down to the vault, got the $2 million in crisp new $100 bills. They were shrink-wrapped in $100,000 amounts. We called the representative of Custer Battles and said, come on up and get your payment, bring a gunny sack. We've got your money ready for you.
Meanwhile, from their base in Baghdad Airport, Custer and Battles were determined to expand their empire. And their next big chance was this: Iraq's money exchange program, known as the ICE Project. It was a classic coalition exercise. They couldn't get desperately needed drugs to hospitals, but they would cheerfully devote enormous resources to replacing dinars showing Saddam's face with ones that didn't. Custer Battles won a contract which would pay them their costs plus 25%. But they wanted far more than that, as one of their associates explained to Bob Isaacson.
He said that, oh no, we can make dramatically more money than that. I said, well, what are you talking, how could you possibly do that?
Custer Battles went ahead anyway.
They simply made up invoices from the companies that they controlled for numbers that were wildly different from what their actual expenses were. and they handed in those invoices in lieu of the real invoices.
For a new helipad, Custer Battles got another company to do the work, then charged a profit of more than 60% on top. And they rented to the coalition forklift trucks that were not even theirs.
That were Iraqi Airways property that had been abandoned. They painted them over so that no one would recognize them as Iraqi Airways forklifts, and Custer Battles then turned around and leased them to the government for $108,000 over 4 months alone.
But then Custer Battles made an extraordinary mistake. They left a devastatingly incriminating document in a CPA meeting room. Grayson has a copy.
So this is what he left behind. It's the spreadsheet as of August 20th of 2003. It lists various columns. This is what Custer Battles actually spent. This is what they invoiced to the government for the same items. 5-ton truck. Actual cost, $240,000 for 12 of them. Invoiced cost, $600,000. Filing cabinets. Actual cost, $0. Evidently because they found them abandoned at Baghdad International Airport. Invoiced cost, $200. Hand trucks, 12 of them. Actual cost, $480. Invoiced cost, $4,800. That's a 1,000% markup. And on and on and on for page after page after page, until you reach the end and you see that $3 million of expenses under a time and materials contract turned into a horrific $10 million in billings to the government.
But perhaps the most extraordinary thing is this. Despite the evidence, the US government has taken no legal action to recover the money.
And yet they continued this contract. They allowed Custer Battles to keep working and to receive other contracts. They took no action to prevent that for almost a year.
What they have to gain from not prosecuting these people?
The government in the United States wants to foster the view that things are going well in Iraq. Coming down hard on war profiteers is inconsistent with that goal. If you're a war profiteer in Iraq, crime does pay.